Hey gang, Steve with Guitar Center. Today we're hanging out at SIR Studios in Hollywood with Jon Romanowski. He's Vice President of Product at Jackson, EVH, and Charvel. Today we're going to check out the new Jackson American Series Virtuoso. Jon, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely delighted, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to check these out. You know, I got to get a little sneak preview of these a couple weeks ago. You know, my initial reaction is just blown away by the playability, the feel. So I'm really excited to get into the guitars. So Jon, about a year ago, you guys reintroduced the Soloist as a mass-produced sort of USA guitar. And now we're bringing the American Series a little bit further with the Virtuoso.
That's correct. Yeah.
So can you just sort of lay for, you know, maybe those of us who aren't that familiar, a little bit of the groundwork of like what Jackson means, like from the 80s to now, and like how it developed this sort of sense of like shredder high performance?
You know, the brand, if you look at it through its history over the last 40 some odd years, you can see the type of players that gravitate, you know, to the brand. They're typically high velocity players. The guitar needs to be able to take a beating. You need to be able to move fast on it. It needs to be loud. It needs to, you know, stand out in a mix. My group and I, what we try to do is steward that sort of spirit, you know, in the products today. Fast forward to 2022, well, actually 2020, but say 2022, when we launched the first platform of the American Series, and it is a series. Soloist was the first model. The second model being released is this Virtuoso. So it's sort of like the Ian Fleming canon. At the SL3 was Dr. No, this is like From Russia with Love, and we're working on Goldfinger next. But there'll be, you know, a bunch of different platforms, and it's a long-term, long-play sort of project.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of that spirit of that partnership with the players. How does that work that way into, let's say, the production of the Soloist and now the Virtuoso?
The one thing we wanted to do is make sure the guitar looks cool, right? Oh, you have to look cool. It has to be easy to play, right? You don't want it to struggle. And it has to sound really good. So it's sort of like this, you know, trifecta, if you will, of three different things. And, you know, players will give you clues as to, you know, whether you're doing a good job in any one of those areas or not.
Yeah.
You know, we look to them for, you know, for guidance. Are we on the right path or not?
And so are there specific players that you have in mind? Maybe there's like an overarching attitude that's sort of in guitar playing right now that sort of set the table for this more shred forward type movement?
You know, if you look in pop culture today, you'll see there's a real kind of renaissance about 80s, and even now the 90s are starting to creep in. When it comes to Jackson, Jackson has always been a high performance, high velocity type of platform, right? You don't play quarter notes on it. You know, if you play anything less than 16th notes, they probably take the guitar away from you. We've seen a resurgence in technical guitar playing. Let's make sure that, you know, we acknowledge our past, but we really are looking, you know, at the present and even over the horizon into the future.
So when you go for this Virtuoso design, where do you start? Do you start at the body shape? Do you start at a neck shape? How does that come about?
This is a derivation of the Dinky. The Dinky being a guitar that was developed, you know, like the mid to late 80s, which was really a 3/4 smaller size. I showed you what one looked like. You know, it's a different looking guitar. You can definitely tell it's a more elongated type of thing. As we were looking at our plan to do this mass-produced thing, it became evident that it was like the Dinky was not going to be an adequate name. If you want to be a purist, that really is not what that guitar should look like. It should look like this. This has roughly the same outline as a Soloist, where it really starts to kind of break away from the pack. That, you know, you don't have a neck plate. You've got almost what Misha Mensor would call a handshake heel, because it really allows you to get your hand up into the higher registers here. We have the shredders cut, so it's really comfortable. So if you're like a big gorilla hand like me, you can kind of really get in there and like, you know, strangle the notes, right? And the guitar really kind of clings to your body, and it's almost seamless as you go up. You know, a lot of ball-on guitars, you know, the heels protrudes a bit. You've got a back plate. Maybe it cuts into the flesh of your palm or whatever. We wanted to make sure that, you know, with this particular platform, we really went above and beyond with the comfort level. We get into the other specifications. A bunch of folks here noticed, obviously, that the fingerboard, this is a streaked ebony fingerboard. It is ebony, it's just streaked. So every fingerboard will look different. And of course, ebony has a certain sound and a certain feel. You know, the headstock, we want to make sure that the headstock color matched for whatever reason. There's just this continuity when you look at the guitar. So the locking tuners seems kind of like an oxymoron. If you ever tried to string a guitar, this is like your third hand. You just put it in there, you hold it. So that sort of speaks for itself. The other thing is it actually adds a little more mass to the headstock. Some extra benefits, but the real big benefit is like this thing holds your string while you're trying to restrict. And of course, yeah, it's got the double locking nut here, so when you use this thing, it doesn't go out of tune.
Getting back to the streaked Ebony fingerboard, this is a compound radius fretboard.
Correct. Yes.
So what does that mean for the player? Like, what are they going to experience through that?
With the compound radius fingerboard, a couple of different things. Ergonomics, comfort. You've got a 12-inch radius. It flattens out the 16th down here. Typically up here, you're playing chords. And so when you're doing that on that type of a radius, it supports the hand a bit. When you kind of get past, say, the 12th fret, where you make no money, here you can really do wide bends. Or if you get up here, that type of thing, you can do like hammer pulls. It's a lot easier to do that on a flatter radius than it is on a rounder one. It was sort of a mixing between like the rhythm and lead thing, and then through ergonomics and just comfort, making sure that it didn't fatigue your hand. And then one last thing, most companies, if they want a thin neck, what they'll do is they'll just shave wood off the back. Well, this allows us to kind of do a little bit of both. Instead of taking wood off the front, you're taking some wood off the top. Guitars with thin necks have a tendency to be very thin. So we wanted to strike that sort of balance, but it was really about the ergonomics and sort of the bending thing that pushed us in that direction. It's all quarter-sawn maple, and 3 parts caramelized maple, and then 2 parts just regular quarter-sawn. I've had artists like Phil Collins from Def Leppard, he'll say, I swear this thing sounds better with caramelized maple. And it's sort of reminiscent of a vintage guitar. If it's been around 30 or 40 years, the wood sort of ages, right? Yeah. The multiply thing was really done for stability purposes. So you've got these 5 plies glued together, opposing grain lines to make sure it's really strong. And then one other thing that you can't see here, but if we cut the neck in half, which we won't do, you'd find 2 pieces of carbon fiber flanking the truss rod to ensure that the fingerboard stays as flat as humanly possible. Back shape is super crucial. This is our speed neck back shape, so it's like 0.73 at the 3rd fret, 0.81 right here at the 12th. And then we've also rolled the edges. So the edges here are rolled about 3/64, again, so that you've got almost like this elliptical type of thing. It's really about the comfort with the neck. You know, when you pick up a guitar, the first thing is, if it feels good, suddenly it's like, oh no, here goes the credit card. That's how that works.
Yeah. So should we get into a little bit now of what this thing sounds like? Maybe let's get into the pickups here. We've got a JB in the bridge, and we've got a 59 in the neck. So this is a pretty classic combo of pickups. How did you guys end up selecting these two?
Oddly enough, we tried some different things. And of course, this is an older body, right? So 2-piece older body. And we tried some different types of Seymour Duncan pickups that were hotter, different types of magnets, different combinations. Oddly enough, we always came back to this combination. It just seemed to be balanced well with the alder. Cool. Like, this is a 16.6K pickup, so it's pretty hot. It's an Onico 5 magnet, but it just seems balanced really well. A couple of folks, we've referred to this internally as like a shapeshifter. Yeah, it's a fast guitar. Yeah, you'd want to use it for high velocity music, but you don't have to. You can drive a Ferrari, at 40 miles an hour. Not as fun, but you can do it. Yeah. That's what really happened. We tried to experiment with different things to try to break out. And at the end of the day, this has been a classic combination that's always served us well, and it sounds really good with the alder. So we're like, okay, we give up. It's good. The champion of 59, it is.
And then you guys got a pretty unique 2nd and 4th position here on the 5-way blade.
You think of high velocity music, hard rock, metal, progressive metal, whatever you want to, dream theater for whatever comes to mind. there's elements where there's lots of dynamics, and we wanted players to get some different types of tones out of these things. So, yeah, when this switches in this position 1, you just have the humbucker here. And when you flick it to the 2nd position, you have like the outer inner sort of thing going on. The 3rd position is both. The 4th position is just the opposite. It's like sort of the inner here and the outer here. And then, of course, when you flip it to the 5th position, it's just full-on neck pickup. We noticed that players that play this type of music, they want to have the ability to have access to dynamics, and these different tonal variations allow them to do that.
All right, so John, let's do a quick compare and contrast of the different pickup positions.
So we'll start here in position 1. We have a clean sound on the amp. This is just the bridge pickup in position 1, right? This is what you'd expect. It's, loud, kind of dark, because it's close to the bridge. Position 2. You can hear it. It's way more spanky sounding. So you don't have that darkness to it, right? And you go to position 3. You're using both pickups. You can hear some warmth kind of creeping in, but just all that spankiness. You go to position 4. And it started to get a little warmer. And when you go to 5, you got full-on Arizona 110-degree heat here. It's like really warm sounding type pickup.
So now let's hear the JB and the 59, maybe with a little extra gain going on.
Bridge pickup, like full-on kill the guy with the ball type of sound. So nice, tight, focused, but not like over the top.
Oh yeah, and a great example there too of that flat fretboard.
Use the neck pickup, high gain, right? And you can... You can really bend the note. And you can go up higher.
So when it comes to Floyd resilience, responsiveness, and staying in tune, how do you guys work to set that up and like sort of set the geometry of that?
Well, I mean, luckily the design itself, I mean, you're locked here, you're locked here. That thankfully takes care of 99.9% of, the other trick is making sure the bridge is, properly positioned from the nuts so that you get intonated and things along those natures. But in terms of, if the question is, does the guitar stay in tune, tuning stability, is that something we look at? It is. And thankfully with this particular tremolo system, just the actual design of it gets us there. Look, wow, it's in tune, No matter what you do to it, it stays in tune.
Nice.
The Floyd Rose thing kind of does it all, takes care of the rest for us.
And so there's a couple little finishing touches on here. There's the satin finish, and then there's the lumen lace.
You're correct, Steve. Here, this is hand rubbed urethane gel. So when you play the guitar, it feels very natural. It feels like natural wood, no paint or anything like that. We do have lumen lace side dots. God forbid if the lights went out, at least I would know kind of generally what key to play in, right? So you can use those as sight markers in the dark.
And just to clarify, they glow in the dark.
Oh, they glow in the
That's what
dark. Oh, yeah.
lumen
It's
lace
like,
is.
oh, yeah, you keep it under the light, you charge it up, you turn the lights off, it glows. On the back, the thing that I love the most, it's the small thing, but the tool holder. That tool holder, has several different functions. One for taking the Floyd apart so that you can restring it and what have you, but also you can use one of those tools to manipulate the truss rod wheel as well.
And then we've got 4 colors.
Yes,
So what we've got this one here, this is the satin shell pink.
it is indeed.
This is very popular. People are going nuts for this. But we've also got Mystic Blue over here, and we've got Satin Black, classic. But we've also got one that's called Specific Ocean, and I think it's a gorgeous color, really nice streaked ebony on this one. It's quite a name. So where does that come from?
That name comes from a colleague of mine, Mike McGregor. Many years ago, we were working on transitioning Charvel into our Ensenada plant. We really like that color. It's sort of a minty green, but it has a metallic to it. Minty green metallic just didn't really, it just didn't move the needle. It wasn't very uninspiring. So we were on our way on a trip. We were coming out of San Diego, driving down Ensenada. So it's a nice, beautiful 45-minute. And we all look straggly, right? Beards, sunglasses, long hair. We're blasted. I don't know, we were playing Tool or something, And we're ripping down and the windows are down. It was a beautiful day. This was one of the things we were trying to figure out. We got to solve this name because we've got to put the finishing touches on this. And he blurts out of the back, Pacific Ocean. Because we were looking at the water. Look how beautiful it is. Pacific Ocean. Boom, that's the name.
Nice.
So yeah, that's how that came about. I think the overreaching thing here is that our CEO, Andy Mooney, is a big fan of heavy metal. He's a big metalhead. That in of itself is sort of unique. Most CEOs, when you think of CEOs, you don't think of that, right?
Yeah.
We have this benefactor who kind of looks over us and makes sure he keeps us on the straight and narrow. For a CEO to come and go, yeah, that's great, but this is really cool. This is a breath of fresh air, right?
Yeah.
That definitely sets the mood.
So John, as we're rolling on this, we're a couple weeks out from the launch of the Virtuoso. What kind of feedback have you gotten from players that have gotten a chance to try it out so far?
So the first thing is, players get it, they feel the neck, it hugs your body. They're like, gets them really inspired. They start playing it, get into it more and more. They start coming up with riffs on it. The feel piece is really key. Had a bunch of them take it out, road test it. They're hamming on these things every night. They throw it in a case, throw it in a van, throw it in a cargo of a plane, go to the next show, and it can keep on ticking and take a licking, which is great. And then the third is the tone. People can't, they plug in, they go, man, I cannot believe how good this thing sounds. Those three, trifecta, those three pillars are the things that we're always shooting for. And when we get that type of feedback, it's kind of like, yes, job well done.
So beyond the pro players that have seen this so far, what are you excited for? Like, your average Guitar Center customer, they're going to come in a few weeks and they're going to experience the Virtuoso. What three things are you like most excited for them to feel?
The first thing is the feel is unreal. You got to come in and you have to play the guitar. You do yourself a disservice if you stare out on a computer screen. Get off your buttocks, get in your car, go to the store, pick up a guitar, play it. You won't be disappointed. The other thing, from Corona with Love. This is made in the United States. It's made by folks who are super passionate about guitars. They're exceptionally good at it. It humbles me every time I go in the factories and talk with them and see what's going on. And the consistency and the quality and the playability are just, second to none. The third thing, which really isn't so much about the guitar, but it's sort of like the spirit of the guitar, if you will. This was designed and developed and manufactured by guitar nerds just like yourself. We want to make sure, some of that spirit, if you will, sort of rubs off into the instrument.
For somebody who might be looking at these instruments and maybe could be, intimidated or have the preconceived notions of like, well, I'm not really a shredder. I don't know. Why would I try out one of these guitars? Like, what would you say somebody who maybe doesn't necessarily know that they would love a shredding guitar? What do they need to know about it before they would say, like, it doesn't even matter that it's got a pointy headstock. It doesn't even matter that it looks the way it looks. Like, it could be my guitar.
We use car analogies a lot in the office. It'd be like, yeah, I don't really want to drive the Lamborghini today. It's like, if you got a shot, take a chance, do yourself a service, and go for it. Yes, this is a guitar that's designed for high velocity playing because there's features that are built into it, as you mentioned earlier, that allow you to play quicker and faster and better. If you want a guitar that's very easy to play, that's very versatile, that looks very modern, cutting edge, and even if you don't want it to look modern, cutting edge, just like the way it looks, like the colors, then you should give it a try.
And so one more, John, for the kids at home. Right now there are, 12-year-olds nationwide pounding away at guitars at their local guitar center, They've got this dream in their head that they're going to play, but they're also like drawing their own designs and like making up their own stuff. In terms of them, aspiring to sort of like work in the field that you work in, what advice would you have for them in order to like sort of like make guitar their life?
If you're passionate about something, you should pursue it. In my case, it was a bit premeditated. Like, I discovered guitar via MTV and was just determined to try to learn as much as I could, as quickly as I could. And then that just sort of spun into working at a music store. Of course, my parents are like, you better keep your grades up. You're going to college, okay. But what you do on the weekends, if you want to grow your hair long and play in a rock band or whatever, that's okay. And clearly, the marriage of those two things allowed me to kind of move through my career the way I have. If I were looking for like one thing to distill down, what was it? It's like I was really passionate about it and I followed that.
John, thank you so much for joining us today. This is really cool, the new Jackson American Series Virtuoso. You got to try it out at your local GC. Call up your gear advisor and nerd out about the specs with them on the phone, or check it out anytime online at guitarcenter.com.